Oh, it's been live? Okay.
I mean, for like 2 minutes.
Okay, my bad. Okay. All right, assalamu alaikum, everyone. So today is our last class, and yesterday was 27th night. I hope you guys made hard dua for what we've been learning about and really internalizing everything we've been talking about. Today, inshallah, I want to do a summary of kind of almost everything, but also mainly I want to open this up for more discussion and coaching and Q&A. So I want to hear what's on your mind, so I can really answer every thought, no matter how small it is. I want to answer it. And so I'll get started here, and I want you to keep in mind any question you have, keep it in your mind or write it down, so that at the end we'll talk about it. Okay, so Bismillah, the first thing what we talked about was is being aware of your story. And I'm going to keep repeating all of this just because it's good to keep it fresh on our mind. Being aware of your story helps you be aware of how you're operating. Like what are you thinking about when it comes to what you think about this process, how you think of yourself. All of that is very, very important because that drives everything you do. When you think, like I gave the example, like if you think I am someone who's awkward and no one wants me, you're going to act like it, and it's going to show in the way you behave. So if we're not aware of that, it's going to show in our subconscious. So that's why the first thing I assigned was writing out who do you think you are, and then also transitioning to who are we becoming. And that is the story of who do you want to become. I want to become someone who does this, 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 and this is who I am, and all this. And you get to build that. You get to decide this is who you become and work towards that. So once we've done that work, the next part is figuring out what you want in a spouse, figuring out what your must-haves, what's your deal breakers, and I also touched on how do you create a network to meet your needs right now with where you're at, even if you're still single. And so that everything is met, and then when you do meet the spouse, it's a nice addition, so that there's not too much pressure on the spouse of actually finding the perfect spouse. And subhanAllah, that's one of the kind of problems nowadays is one time I met someone, and this was like 2 days ago, and I asked him okay, what are you looking for in a woman? And he listed out all these things, and I was like, okay, that's nice. So then I asked, okay, if I gave you the perfect woman, all of these things, but she doesn't work out, but she looks good and everything, but she just doesn't work out. And he was like, yeah, that's a deal breaker. And that is a huge problem because he's not clear on what exactly is it's just that's perfectionism. That's not okay. That's coming from the ego. And that is something we have to check on. And maybe that example I just gave is a little extreme, but we do have that in some other aspects, right? This person has to be studying deen this way, or this person has to be like this and this way, or they have to be from this certain thing. It's and things we kind of inherited that we think that they must have it. Those things are important to make sure, are they coming from a value that's actually important, or is it coming from an ego-based want, I mean. And that's different from preferences, right? So we talked about figuring out what you want. And then the third thing is that once you figure out everything you want and you meet someone and you match and everything looks good, then we set a plan, a 90-day container that I talked about. And during these 90 days, the mission is, the purpose is to figure out what do I want, what do I need to know in order to make a decision. It is not a relationship. It's not here to flirt and be in our feelings. It's more about what do I need to know in order to make the decision. And we talked a lot more into being authentic in the way you communicate. Any problem, the tiniest problem that comes up, speaking up about it, making sure you're not people pleasing and not hiding and making sure you're brushing things under the rug just for the sake of not rocking the boat. This is the time to rock the boat during these 90 days. And speaking up and saying what you need to say. Okay. Talked also a little bit about infatuation, making sure the dangers of infatuation, how some people slip into it, and so how to counter that is to just be aware that it is a thing, and catching yourself when you are infatuated to try to ground yourself so that you're making decisions from a more what's the word? Not foolish place, let's say. Yeah. Okay, and then we talked about rejection and heartbreak. And one note I wanted to add to heartbreak, sometimes heartbreaks that are really devastating, like to the point where you cannot function, usually stems from your heart has been filled and attached to something other than Allah. So here's what I mean by that. When you are fully attached to like a person and like this is your everything, and it kind of becomes your center of the world, and because they're human and this is dunya, they're not gonna act the way you want them to, and it shatters your heart, that is it's gonna hurt extremely more than someone who knows, you know, Allah's the center of their world, and whoever comes their way and they get disappointed, it's like a disappointment, but it's not a earth-shattering heartbreak. And you can tell the difference. Like I know when I talk to someone and they're like really devastated from a heartbreak, it came from their extreme attachment to what they think will make them happy and content and fulfilled. And it's never a human being. It's never a spouse. We always have to redirect it back to Allah. So that was just a little side note, but we talked about rejection the pain doesn't come from the no, it comes from what you make it mean. Every single time, in every situation. If someone says no to you, the pain comes from the thought, I'm not good enough, something's wrong with me, like I'm never gonna get married, something along those lines. So when we know that, that's what rejection is, we don't have anything to worry about, because that pain is coming from us, it's not coming from them. And so I always recommend, like, and when we're training during the, like, and not training, but like, you know, you train your brain to actually tolerate rejection by every time you get rejected, you say, oh, look, there's that thought that's causing me pain. And you're pointing out the pain so that next time it comes, you're like, oh, there we go, there's that thought again. And it's not true, it's just a story again. It's just a story that your brain comes up with. And what you actually want to be rejected ahead of time, because this will weed out the people that are not your people. Rejection is good. And we didn't grow up with this, right? We grew up with, like, you know, rejection is bad and something's wrong with you if you got rejected. And so we have to kind of shift that narrative to be like, if someone ghosts me or if someone doesn't want to talk to me, I don't want that person. I want someone that wants me back. So if they don't want me, that's good. And our brain tends to want everyone to like us, you know, because that's part of the ego. And we have to remember that there's going to be maybe 100 rejections before we get the one that we really want. Okay, so then during these 90-day containers, we also focused on authentic communication, right? Clearly and vulnerably communicating in an honest way. And what that looked like, and I gave examples last time, was like, if there's something really hard to bring up, you preface it with, listen, this is really hard for me to bring up, and I'm kind of struggling bringing this up, but this is what's on my mind. And you even mention it, because when you mention this is hard to bring up, it softens up the whole conversation, because you're admitting this is hard to bring up. And practicing that, and then practicing it with your friends, with your family, like this is something that's on my mind, and this is really hard to bring up, and I've been avoiding bringing it up because I'm afraid that you're going to react this way, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is what's on my mind. Right? And then last thing I talked about was decision making, right? Decision making, as in, one of people's biggest fears is I don't want to make the wrong and right decision. And I kind of brushed on, like, every decision you make on a spiritual level is good for you. Allah is facilitating you with everything you do, that it's good for you, for your growth, for your development. So even if you end up in a marriage that's like in a divorce, that was good for you. You needed that. And I've met so many incredible, like, women and men who have been through divorce and come out in a much, subhanAllah, very wise, very grounded, very spiritually, like, transformed because of that experience. So that's more on a spiritual level. And now we talk on a practical level, how do you make decisions? And we talked about, you know, we don't really focus on what's right and wrong. We're more focusing on, like, what's good and what's a bad decision. And I gave the example of, like, if you go to Chick-fil-A, right, versus eating a salad, it's not a right or wrong decision. It's more of like, this is a good decision based off of what I know, and a bad decision. And so I also discussed a lot of that last time. And then today I want to talk about obstacles and the mission of why we're here, is to kind of wrap all of this up. Now I could go on for like many more sessions about what else needs to be done, but this is kind of the I'm going to wrap it up with this, is the main mission of all of this is not to focus on the result of finding the spouse, but it's when you focus on who you're becoming, 100%, that's your focus. I want to become the best, the best husband I can be, the best human I can be. Naturally, you will attract the spouse that you're looking for. So we have to remember, the vision is, who am I becoming, not who am I trying to find. I need to find someone now. It's like more of like, who am I becoming? And the finding part comes naturally. And the thing is, when people lose sight of that, when they lose sight of that vision and their main focus becomes, I need to find someone, that's when they fall into the trap of desperation and loneliness and hopelessness. Like, oh, like, I'm not getting this result now, and like, what's wrong with me? Like, I should be married by now. And they fall into that trap, which I'm sure all of you have heard either through other friends or people who are in this process. It's because they've lost focus of the main mission, of the end goal. We're all here, we're all trying to get to Jannah. What does it look like to get there? To become that version of us that we need to be. So what does that actually look like? And this is where, when you set the goal, I'm gonna find a spouse, a lot of obstacles are gonna come up. And today I want to talk about, how do you transform those obstacles to make it where you don't feel stuck. Okay, so typically problems that come up that I hear is, I don't know where to find someone. Obstacle. I'm not good at talking with girls, or I don't know how to bring up a conversation. What else? Like, I'm too awkward, no one's gonna like me. Like, those are kind of obstacles that you face that people just stay stuck in. And so what I want to shift in all of you is to become more into a more growth mindset and more resourcefulness when it comes to this. So what this looks like, I want you to imagine a ladder that we're climbing, and every ring in that ladder, is it called a ring? I don't know what it's called. Rung, thank you. Every one of those is those obstacles that you currently have right now. You need those obstacles to be the person that finds your spouse. So if one of your problems is, I don't know where to find someone, that's obstacle number one. So now the resourceful version of you is that if that's the problem, we're going to create the version of you that figures it out. How can I be someone that figures out how to find someone? And you go into problem solving mode. Let's come up with ideas. Okay, there's the apps, there's the events, there's networking, there's like, let me figure out what it takes. Let me go into this mode where I can figure it out. Versus the more like less resourceful, disempowered mode is, I can't find anyone, woe is me, and you stay stuck. Right? Versus we turn it into a goal of, I'm going to figure out what it takes to find someone, and put on a problem solving mode. You become someone that's resourceful. You become someone that's more problem solving. And that enhances your character. You actually enjoy it now. Right? Okay? So now let's say another obstacle that you have is, I can't deal with rejection. Like, you find it really hard to deal with rejection. I don't want to put myself out there because what if I get rejected? So then we turn that into, now your goal is to become someone who knows how to deal with rejection. That's the goal. We're creating tiny little goals to transform you to the person you need to become. And we start with where you're stuck at. What's your obstacles right now? So if you hesitate and you feel like, I am so terrified of rejection, so then we create a goal for you. I am going to, for the next 10 people I talk to, I am going to get rejected and learn how to deal with it. And when we focus on that kind of goal, we're not focusing on the person or the outcome specifically. We're focusing on, this is if with every rejection I'm getting, I'm climbing up that ladder. I'm becoming someone who isn't afraid of rejection anymore. Right? So then we kind of set small little goals, right? Like, I want to become someone who knows how to deal with awkward moments. I want to become someone who knows how to have small talk and not make it that way. It doesn't feel like I'm dying, right? I want to become someone who knows how to deal with conflict. So let's say that's one of your goals. One of your goals is to become someone who knows how to deal with conflict. What does that look like? It looks like the next person you talk to, you bring up a problem, and you sit through it. Like, let's figure out how to manage this conflict, or even with your family or with your friends. Your goal is to focus on that. How can I become someone that deals with conflict? Right? Or let's say one of your problems is you're a people pleaser and you don't know how to stop it. Now your goal is, how can I be someone who speaks up even when it's not pleasing to the people? Those are hard little goals, but like when you focus on that and you're focusing on who you're becoming, that makes this whole journey so much more like beautiful, delicious. Like this is, I'm becoming someone. Finally, it's not just this exhausting, when am I going to get married kind of thing. You're becoming exactly who you want to be. That after all these little goals, and you become this really confident person who knows how to manage any obstacle that comes your way, who wouldn't want to be in your life? Who wouldn't be attracted to that? Right? So part of building up who you are is becoming this person who's like unstoppable when it comes to obstacles. I can handle it. Oh, like this thing came up. Oh yeah, let me figure out what I can do to deal with it. And that's more of a growth mindset, right? Like what Manuel mentioned last time. Like, how do we become a more growth mindset? Is setting these tiny little goals and challenging yourself to push yourself. Be like, okay, I'm gonna become someone who speaks up, and I'm gonna notice when I'm feeling awkward. I'm gonna like figure out what to do here. I'm gonna practice being vulnerable. Next time I talk to someone, I'm gonna practice it. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, and I know I'm gonna get rejected, but that's good because I'm practicing how to get there. Right? So, right, so all of this, right? But the main thing here is we have to decide ahead of time. We are choosing not to be stuck, no matter what. And after this class, you are going to go out there and you are going to meet people who are stuck. They are stuck in their story, and they want to hold on to the story that this is miserable and there's no way out. But every single problem is solvable, no matter how like stuck you feel. It's solvable either with a different perspective, with something that you're just not aware of. And how you solve it is when you put on your growth mindset cap, and we start thinking in a more resourceful way. And what the example I always give is like, let's pretend, right, you've set a goal to make $1 million, and you're fundraising it for the masjid, let's say, I don't know. And it's like, we have to, like, it's not an option. We have to do it. You will get very creative in how you figure that out and how to raise that $1 million. You'll get very, very creative. You're gonna get rejected so many times of when you ask people for money or all this, and you're just gonna keep going, and you're gonna figure it out, and eventually you're gonna become someone who's really good at making money. And this is the same process. You have to keep going. And I even when you meet someone who has this kind of fixed mindset where they're choosing not to get out of their this stuckness, you can challenge them to be like, no, actually that's not true. Like, you can notice it. Like, you don't have to be stuck. Like, but you can just do this. And we're training your brain to have that perspective, to be someone who chooses not to be stuck. And I promise you, when you have this kind of perspective, it just feels more expansive. Feels more, you're not stuck in a room choking, like, why am I not married yet? It's just like, there's more to life. And so that's what I kind of want to leave you guys with, is how to be more in a growth mindset. And 2 books I recommend on this. There's a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and she speaks a lot more expansively on growth versus fixed mindset. And The other book I want also recommend for more for relationships is it's called Attached. The author's not coming to mind for a second, but this also talks about attachment theory, which is if you're someone. So there's kind of three basic attachment theories, which is what it is how you function in a relationship, right? So there's the first one, which is anxious attachment, and how that shows up. Usually, when someone is anxious attachment in a relationship, is they're more clingy, they're more needy, they're more like, they're more anxious about losing, and there's like so much more on that, right? And then there's the second one is avoidant attachment, which is they avoid intimacy, they avoid emotional intimacy, they avoid anything to do with vulnerability, all of that, right? And then the third one, which is what we're aiming for, is the secure attachment, and that is when we do this work, you become more secure, and you're more open and available for love and attachment, and that is a whole other class that we could probably teach, but I'll just recommend this book for you. It's called Attached. It's very popular, so if you just Google it, you'll see that. And then that's pretty much it. And when I say here, and here's another note on being resourceful. When I say being resourceful, anytime you come up with a problem and you just, like, let's say you encounter someone that doesn't text you back and you notice you feel a certain way, if you literally just Google, why do I feel anxious when someone doesn't text me back? A bunch of articles come up where you're not the only one who's facing this. So that way what happens is you start learning, oh, like this is a thing. You know, there's a thing called relationship anxiety apparently. Oh, okay, that's good to know. Well, how can I overcome it? And there's a lot of free resources online, and you read what feels like, what resonates with you. Like, okay, does this make sense to me? Does this click with me? And you kind of work with that, right? And it's hard to be like, no, this is the specific resource. It's just, you work with what you see on Google also sometimes. And so what I mean by being resourceful is doing what you can to figure it out. Ask people around you, use Google, invest money if you need to, figure out what you need in order to work on it. Yeah, so I'm gonna end it with that. I think today I really want to focus on helping you, more of like coaching you, discussion, Q&A, and seeing what's on your minds when it comes to all of this stuff that I talked about, which is a lot. But Iman, what do you have any little things that you want to add, or nothing?
Yeah, I've read both of those books. They're amazing.
Good. Okay. Yes.
Actually,
yeah.
They changed my worldview.
Yes.
Many years ago. Carol Dweck actually is attributed as the thought leader that coined the concept
yes.
of growth mindset versus fixed mindset, even beyond relationships. Because I read these two books after I was married,
mm-hmm.
right? But they help you become a better person, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I could not agree more with those recommendations. Hopefully these sessions were of benefit. I really enjoyed teaching this with you. I think you bring a wealth of experience and knowledge, and I think what she does best is actually what's about to come, which is the more discussion portion of the session, which is sort of untangling these thoughts and getting you to a place where you start thinking about the issue in a much more productive way. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, for Jazakallah, yeah. I think I think we can. Oh, actually, one last thing I want to add as a little note. Sorry. So there's this. I don't know if you guys saw Omar Suleiman's Sheikh Omar Suleiman's video on the Why Me series, where it talked about the love. Will I ever find love? Had any of you watched it?
I saw the clip.
You saw the clip? You did? Okay. So a lot of women that I know, they watched it and they kind of got disheartened by the part that it's probably not written for you. So that's all they took from the video. And I'm like, all right, I need to address this part, right? So here's the thing, the how do I know if it's written for me part? Ultimately, you don't know. However, when we go from the mindset of it's probably not written for me, cognitively, you close off that opportunity, and you don't, like, you're not available. You kind of like block that off of your mind, and you don't act in a way where people know that you're available. And not just you emotionally, even to God, you're like, all right, it's fine, it's just not written for me. And so it's very important to know, like, to kind of shift that from it's probably not written for me, and it creates this kind of gloomy feeling, versus I don't know what's written for me, but I do know what Allah has written for me is best for me. And it's 100% written for me, either in this dunya or in the akhirah, but I'm going to do my best to get it in this world too. And whatever it takes. And what does it take? It literally takes these steps. When you follow these steps, I guarantee you it is so hard not to get married, not to find your love, when you like really do this work. And so now my thought is, I'll entertain the thought, what if it's not written for me? And here's actually what I did before I got married. I made a decision that, I'm not really finding my person so far. So I made a decision that maybe it's written for me when I'm 50. And even if that's true, what do I want to do in the meantime? What legacy do I want to build? How do I want to live my life so that I'm actually super proud of who I am, and not make this thing that, Allah has decreed it for me in 50, that is what's best for me. So what can I do in the meantime? How can I live my life in a way where it is the best thing ever? Because a lot of people have chosen that because they're not married, they're wasting away their life being so stressed out about it that, like, they look back and they're like, why did I stress out? Like, that was such a waste of time. Like, it's gonna come either way. Like, you just, all we have to do is choose how to live those moments, and then we just always trust and tawakkul on Allah that He knows what's best for us, whatever time that is. 50, 60, when you're dead, doesn't matter. That's really not the point. All right, that's it. So let's move on to Q&A. And my favorite part is actually coaching someone. So whoever's bold to come up and actually, not come up, but like to tell me what's on your mind, and I can coach you through, and I'll show you the magic of shifting perspectives and stuff like that. So you can raise your hand. Okay, go ahead.
How would you bring up getting a prenup?
Okay, that's a good question.
Can I follow up with that question as well?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, like, I'm also curious, like, what is the legality, like, when you get married in America? What's the difference between, like, marrying in America and marrying in Islam? I don't want to know, like, is there some differences? Is there, like, a common thing? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll leave that part of the question for Imam Anwar, but for your question, first I want to check in on where you're coming from. Like, when I say where you're coming from is usually sometimes men that I've talked to, they have this fear that the woman's gonna take all their money, and we have to clean that up, because we don't want to come from a place of fear, but more of like like a little cautious is more on the healthier side. Because if you're afraid, like, she's definitely a gold digger, she's gonna take my money, you're gonna show that in the relationship. So yeah, so the way so the reality is, right, once you clean up that fear, that's your internal work. Like, okay, I'm meeting a woman that I love and I trust, and now, maybe I have the $2 in my bank account, I want to protect it. I'm just kidding. But, like, how do I bring this up in a way where she doesn't feel like I'm attacking her, is your question. You can say the words, this is really hard for me to bring up, but I heard advice from this one person to do a prenup. And one of my fears is I don't want you to think that I don't trust you. You could say that, right? Is it okay if we do a prenup? Now, two things happen. She will get offended, maybe. And you deal with that. And you deal with it as in, like, listen, I know this might sound upsetting, and I get it. To ask for a prenup pretty much means I don't trust you. I can see that. But I just think, it's wise for both of us to do this because of the advice I heard. And then, kind of handle it from there. Second is if she, usually they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. But either way, you'll deal with it, right? But either way, you'll deal with it with honesty. This is really hard to bring up, but this is what I've heard advice to do, and I'm just following the advice of what I've heard. What's your thoughts on that?
Just put this over here.
I think I just worry about a strong negative reaction, like after bringing it up,
Yeah,
because
as you
I
should.
know I'm approaching it from a positive perspective, not the
Yes,
fear gold digger perspective.
right.
But I think, like, if I bring that conversation up, I come at it from a very logical perspective,
Hmm.
and I think sometimes I'm too logical,
Mm.
which might, like, I think that can be taken the wrong way.
Yes, so what you just said right there, I want you to bring that up. I am afraid because I'm someone who's like really logical, and I'm afraid sometimes it comes off the wrong way. And this is what's on my mind. Like, this is what I'm thinking in order to, because of whatever I heard the advice. And I know I'm afraid that you're going to have a negative reaction, but I'm going to bring this up. And they will have a negative reaction. And then and what are you afraid will happen if they have a negative reaction?
I don't know, I haven't thought that far ahead.
Yeah, let's think that far, because that's what your brain's afraid of. So what do you think will happen? Let's say she says, oh, like, what's wrong with you? Like, why don't you trust me? Then what?
I think I'd be worried about a lack of trust in future interactions from their side.
Yeah. So how do you answer that? Let's say she says, like, why? Like, I don't trust you. Like, why would you say you want a prenup? How do you answer that?
Because just looking at the data, divorce is relatively common, and even though it's not something I'd want to go through,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's smart for both of us to plan for this ahead of time in case it ever happens. And if it doesn't happen, then a prenup doesn't matter.
Okay, but like, you don't trust me?
What if it's
Answer
not
that.
personal?
Answer that, yeah. You got this. Yeah.
I trust you, but I would. I trust you, and I want to make a decision about this when we're both thinking logically and not in a very emotional state. Like if we ever went through a divorce, I want both of us to have this. But I would want both of us to have a plan in case we ever did go down that road.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So if a sane woman heard that, she'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? And if she's still emotional, that's okay. She let her have her moment and come back and be like, listen, I trust you, I really do. It's just, I'm just more of a logical person, and I just think it's healthy to come at it from this perspective, right? Now, if she really threw a fit and she's like, I cannot believe you even mentioned it, then that's kind of data for your decision making on her, right? Okay, how does that sound? Good, alhamdulillah. Okay.
Malia.
Yeah, someone else told me in regards to prenup to try and reframe the idea or thinking behind it. They compared it to putting on a seatbelt. You don't put on a seatbelt expecting to crash. You put it on in case it crashes, right?
Yeah,
So do you
yeah.
think that's a good way to kind of reframe?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like what he just said. Like it comes from more, we're being logical here, and kind of those examples helps too, for sure. Yeah. Okay. Did the woman? Did you see the Q&A or QR code? Okay. Good.
That's regarding my question.
Oh yes, I forgot. Sorry. So what's the difference Islamically
Yes,
versus?
so because I want to do a prenup, like personally.
Yeah.
Just making sure that when I do divorce, I'm doing it with the proper amount of money and whatever it is. I just don't know, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I want to know.
Yeah, some rich people up in the house. Sorry.
Protecting their assets.
Yeah, protecting their assets. So, I'm not really familiar with the divorce difference between Islamic and
Yeah, I guess
legal.
maybe it's not even entirely about protecting your assets, but just more of trying to make sure you do it the Islamic way.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, that's actually the other kind of advantage of a prenup is you kind of uh, you ensure that if things do go south, that you're not at the mercy of like a non-Muslim Western court to decide what happens. That's the other angle you might want to play, right? That like, I want to make sure that we come together Islamically and our relationship is built on Islam. And it's not that we're planning for divorce, but even if we were to separate, even that is done sort of Islamically and amicably. And I think any sort of Islamically minded individual would appreciate that. I know a lot of couples that actually they decide to get a prenup because of that reason, right? To make sure that yeah. So
Okay.
Can I add something to
Yeah,
that?
go ahead.
So my thing is that if you're going into a relationship with the idea of it ending in divorce, then it's not really the one for you. That's my perspective on it. You know, you should not go in the end goal knowing that it's going to end terribly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have that thought in the beginning, and that's your doubt for the entire relationship.
Yeah, but it's also a fear. Everyone has that fear, right? I agree. Like, we're not going in it with it's probably gonna end, but also like, let's be realistic. What if it does end? Then what? And thinking through all of that. Yeah.
there's an interesting kind of a phenomenon among like scholars and imams. There was this push that when you go to officiate a wedding, you should educate the couple about what the rights and responsibilities are of a marriage. But then also there's a lot of what's the word? Misconceptions around divorce as well. The amount of times as an imam, you see people coming into my office and saying like, so-and-so person got upset and said, I divorce you, and then came back and said, well, I mean, it really doesn't count. I wasn't serious. I was joking. It's like, that's not, So there's a tasteful way of doing it. There's a not so strategic way of doing it. I've seen like imams and scholars like literally talk about divorce at the wedding, which I think is the worst thing ever. I've been at weddings where like literally the person gave like an entire lecture on the fiqh of divorce. And it's like, I'm so glad I'm not the bride or groom. Like, imagine how much that sucks. Like you're at the wedding day and the guy's just going on and on about the fiqh of divorce. Now it came from a good place, I feel like, that in that particular imam experience, he's just sick and tired of like picking up the pieces of divorce after, because there's just a lack of awareness. And so the happy medium that I found, so every time I officiate a wedding, I always leave the couple with a manila folder. In that folder, there's two things. There's a nikah certificate that the masjid sort of offers. Then there's a marriage contract as well. So that document, the way I frame it is that as a newly wed couple, what you should know is Islamically what makes a marriage and what breaks a marriage. Because you don't want to be put in a position where you said something in jest or said something in anger and that affected the status of your marriage and you had no idea about it. So in that document, what I put is like basically just in writing. I don't address it at the ceremony, right? I'm not going to talk about divorce while I'm marrying a couple together. But I do leave a document with them that's basically a marriage contract. The front of the document basically is the rights and responsibilities of husband and wife, the legal components of an Islamic marriage. Then the next 2 pages is basically the Islamic concept of when things don't go well, what is the process of like Islamic arbitration? What is the process of like separation? What is the process of divorce? And at the end of it, basically, I have them sign it. So basically, it's
Hold
like
on,
I'm giving exactly. I'm giving you whatever I have. So, in effect, it's basically a prenup without calling it that. And so, that's one way I've found it. It's a kind of a strategic way of doing it. Yeah.
So, is it sufficient to just sort of have like an outline of like, because I think what you described sort of sounds like an outline of like, okay, maybe God forbid, we're not praying for this to happen, but like if it does come to divorce, then this is how we're going to handle this. If we have kids, this is how we're going to do it according to like how it's the guidelines of Islam, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not really having like legally like gotten lawyers to like sign it and all that, but just like something like private between the two of you, and then store it somewhere, and then like
Yeah, yeah.
if the time should come, then you guys come to that.
And of course, it's weird talking about it in this context, right? Because it's marriage, it's so sensitive, it's really personal. But we take these sort of precautions in pretty much everything in life, right? Like nobody would, sign a contract of employment without, clarifying, like, if there's ever an issue, how do we solve it? How do we, so it's, it definitely is something advised. And I think the way you framed it is perfect. If you're coming at it from a fear-based perspective, that this is definitely going to happen. If it happens, I want it to happen this way. That's the unhealthy approach. The more healthy approach is, this is a reality of life, and should we go down this path, we want to make sure that we do it in a way that's pleasing to Allah. And that's, I think reasonable.
Yeah.
So basically, if I get married here in Nueces, like you'll deal with the prenup and everything.
I will, yes.
He'll take care of it. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Oh, go ahead.
Did you read off
can you reiterate what the role of the wali is in this process?
Bless you.
So,
I don't know.
yeah, there's a concept called a wali in Islam. Basically, it's someone that represents the interest of usually the bride to make sure that her rights are not usurped during the process, to make sure that her interests are represented fairly. The school of law that I was formerly trained in and studied, having a wali officially is not an absolute requirement of the marriage process. However, as a rule of thumb, I don't officiate weddings of young couples without some sort of involvement of someone older, whether it's family. Usually it's family, right? But if someone doesn't have parents or doesn't have people, there should be someone to represent the interest of actually both parties. I have the same policy if a guy comes to me and says that, look, I'm doing this by myself, my parents don't know I'm getting married, they're not supportive of it. Very rarely do I make exceptions to this, but as you can imagine, because I deal with young people all the time, I don't want to open up myself to doing shotgun weddings or weddings in apartments or dorm rooms or back alleys sort of things. And so while and my teachers also gave us this advice as well, that even though in the Hanafi school having a wali is not a strict requirement of a valid marriage contract, legal marriage, it's a good idea to have someone older who just does a check on, just has eyes on the process, right, to make sure that your interests are being protected. So there's all sorts of details about who this wali could be. Typically, it's the father of the person involved, and there's some detail about what to do if your particular wali is being unreasonable or is incompetent. But that's for
another class.
that's for another time. Yeah. We don't want to open up that can of worms. What do you talk about before the 90 days to decide what you want to go through with the 90 days?
Yeah, so like the first time you match with someone and you're trying to see, let's just talk about if you're make sure your deal breakers are not there. Like all the deal breakers. Okay, this is not there, it's not there. Okay, good so far. And is there like a connection a little bit, right? Like just are you vibing with them? Like is there something that we can take to the next level? And just making sure the deal breakers are there is what I aren't not there is what I and the must-haves are there too. So that's your goal, is to figure that out first. That's your main priority, and then next is the 90 days is more of like the Imam Majid questions, going into detail of family, life, money, all these things. Do we all agree on that? Is there deal breakers there? And like I said, like when we're evaluating someone's character, you're asking the hard questions to see how they react, and we're not holding back, because that's how you help. That's the magic of the being vulnerable, is you actually see someone's character, how they react to it.
This is a good one. So I've been talking to a person.
I can read if you can't read.
Yeah, please, thank you so much.
Yeah. So I've been talking. I think you can barely breathe. So. Okay, so I've been talking to a person for the past 5 months, and we both believe we're in sync with each other, and we are agreeing on a lot of values and perspectives on a lot of things. For example, we've been answering the 100 questions by Imam Majid, and a lot of our answers are similar. However, she currently lives in a different state, but may end up in Texas for her master's. We both agree to wait while she figures out her academic career, but I struggle with keeping the spark alive and keeping interest, especially with being long distance. Yes. So, Mr. Person, so how do we my question to you is, like, are you ready to get married? Or are we waiting for her, like, for later? But we'll keep that question for the side for a second. If this person is meant for you, they will be there. Like, the spark thing is you maintain contact with them, right? Like, okay, like this, like what I'm more concerned of, is there a plan? Like, if she doesn't come to Texas, then what? If she, you know, like, are we talking years here? Are we talking months? What are we talking? Let's start with having a plan, and then answering the what if questions. Like, okay, like if I don't come to Texas, then what? Do we still continue, or do we not? And hopefully you're not too attached to the point where you don't bring up this question, because this question has to be brought up. And then we'll talk about spark being alive or not, but let's have a plan first. And then once there's a plan, if they're you know, then the keeping interest, it's more of, how do I say this? You're talking, this is what I hesitate on, because I don't want you guys to think this is a relationship. Like, it is more about, like, all right, we have a plan, let's get married. And if they lose interest and it's been a couple months, then I'm like, why are you losing interest? Like, then we bring that up. Like, what is there to lose interest on? Like, are they someone who needs to be talked to every day? Are they, like, what is it that, and it would help if the person spoke up and actually told me what they're going, like, why do you think they would lose interest? But if not, it's okay. But my point is, plan first, and then if there's no, and then work on the interest spark, depending on what their needs are. Like, what are they expecting? Should we talk like once a week, twice a week? And then maintaining that every now and then.
Where can we find the 100 questions of Imam Majid?
Oh, if you just Google 100 questions by Imam Majid, first link, it'll come up. And it's a good book too, if you want to. He has a book called Before I Tie the Knot, before we tie the knot, something like that, by Imam Majid. It explains a lot about the pre-process, and so it's a good recommendation too. I got a chance to actually talk to him as one of my pre-marriage counseling, and he's very wise in the way he approaches things, and he's just a good resource to go to. Yes.
This is related to that question. I didn't ask it, but
Yeah. Asking for a friend. Yes.
I'm in this kind of similar situation.
Yeah.
Where me and the person I'm talking to have had a lot of these conversations, like over FaceTime or over phone.
Mm-hmm.
How important do you think it is to have similar conversations in person?
How important is it to have similar conversations with
Like,
yours? Yeah.
would you recommend bringing up some of those questions again in person, or?
So in person, I would say is Here's what's on my mind. What is it do you think is going to be different in person? What's missing? What do you think is going to be different between virtual and in person?
Just like reading body language.
Okay, yeah. So maybe some things that you're worried about that maybe you could bring that up again in person to see how they react. Because let's say if you're asking a question over text, hey, like, what do you think about finances? And they give you a very nice ChatGPT answer versus maybe you want to ask that in person, like how they react. Like, is there something specific that's on your mind right now that you're afraid of, like she would act differently in person versus virtually?
I don't.
You don't think so? Yeah.
It's just like a dumb information kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So whatever you think you need. Again, I always go back to like what data do you need to make the decision, and if you need it to see it in person, then that's what you need to do. I don't give like a cookie cutter answer for everyone because it is very different for every person. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask that question.
Okay, good, thank you.
So I'm currently in my master's program.
Yes.
And I'm finishing my first year, and
Yes.
she's in her gap year right now, and she's looking to hear back from Baylor within the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole plan was I'll do this course, talk to my parents, see what's happening, potentially go out to Florida and meet her.
Yeah.
But she's very hesitant about it because she's still trying to figure out her academic career.
Yeah.
Totally respectful, totally understand that. And the thing is that I'll finish my master's before the time she finishes hers, so I can easily move my job wherever to accommodate her needs as well.
Yeah. So you're willing to move to Florida
Yeah.
or wherever she goes? Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
no, I mean, it's wherever she goes.
Yeah.
That's-
Selectively, not
Yeah,
Kentucky.
selectively, yeah. Some states are off the top.
Yeah. Like it's not
But
Kentucky.
so I guess that's where I'm at is like we've been talking every single day, texting like especially like throughout Ramadan. We've been it's like how's your Ramadan going?
Yeah.
Like we've been motivating each other throughout the entire process. So it's kind of like it's nice to see that somebody who's your same age has the same view on everything. I guess so, especially being in a predominantly white country. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
So what are you worried about right now?
Really just keeping that spark alive when what happens if she doesn't end up in Texas, like that's because like everything I guess we're out of that honeymoon phase where we asked all the hard questions, we got to know each other a lot, and so it's kind of like, well, what now? What do we do?
Right.
Like it's kind of like stale because it's like we both talked about like what happens, like we're both interested in getting to know each other more, getting married eventually.
Yeah.
I mentioned her to my grandparents, to my uncle. She mentioned her to her friends.
Right.
But like how do we keep it going?
Right. Yeah. So I would just prioritize first, like answering those what if questions. Like, what if she doesn't move to Texas? Are you willing? And then what are the non-negotiable states that you're not? Like, what does that actually look like? Like, we have to actually answer all those fears, all those ways, and then moving on from there. And what that looks like is continuing your kind of small talk situation, or like every now and then telling her, hey, like, how are you doing? All this, and you're not like completely cutting off until something happens, but just prioritizing the plan, and if the spark is lost because I don't know, you're not 100% like you're not entertaining her all the time, I wouldn't like it's not really important. I don't know. What's your thoughts there? if about losing the spark.
I think what you said before about it was hit the nail on the head.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure it's like a Islamically acceptable.
Yeah, I think you were right about what you said.
Okay, good.
If you're planning on being with a person for the rest of your life, the spark shouldn't die if if you just within a month period.
Right, yeah. So continue doing what you're doing. But it
Yeah,
sounds like
yeah,
you're on track.
continue.
Everyone knows, you're not hiding it. It's everything's fine. And so all I'm just suggesting is check with what the what ifs.
That one question about what if.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing I've been thinking about a lot, and I've seen this in my parents' marriage, which is I think has been a good example of seeing it in real life. Is like you can have two people who have chemistry, but like what really matters sometimes the most is like how they are when they're both stressed. Not when one's stressed, but like when they're both stressed or both under duress. And like, I've seen that humble like beautifully in my parents' marriage, very very different. But I've seen that also in my older friends who are like 27, 28. So I've been thinking about that because I'm not sure what's a way to go around gauging that in a person, because you can't be like, how are you when you're stressed? Sometimes they might not know themselves as much, but then like, what if they don't? How do you validate that? And also, I think it kind of does come down to like tawakkul, it's like knowing that like, but yeah, that's been just on my mind.
Yeah. Answering like situations like that is putting them in situations, not intentionally, but like, but like, I don't know, like I'm trying to think what would put them in a situation where you can see that.
Should I like make up stuff?
I don't know about making up stuff, but like maybe you could like maybe more of a scenario, like a scenario like.
I think in the course of the talking to them, there's gonna be like organic.
And I was just gonna say that too.
Yeah, like natural pain points, like something simple like, hey, so we've been talking for the past like 2-3 weeks. I think we're at the point where, like, when did you want to bring like mom and dad into this? And she freaks out. Like that's a data point.
Yeah, it's a
right,
data
for
point. Yeah. I just anything like I don't know, like even like a board game or something. I don't know, something that like brings out stress. Like I'm trying to think. I did this with my own husband, and I was trying to like go ahead. Yeah.
Just something that I've heard before for practice is to also ask questions about a situation when they were stressed or when they were mad or when like what makes them angry. So like you also understand from multiple different perspectives of like how they would be behaving. Like, oh, can you tell me about a time where you were mad? Like, oh, you had this one time, and you could see if they're talking a lot of trash, if they're handling the situation well, you could kind of gauge a little bit better from there. But maybe ask more than one question, because that one answer could also be like slightly fabricated.
Yeah, and one thing. Yeah, now I'm remembering it now. Observing her relationship with her parents, observing how she reacts with her sisters. I don't know about y'all, but I get very triggered around my sisters. And so it is not the best indicator of how I am normally. But I told my husband while I was talking to him, I was like, I get super triggered around my siblings, but when I'm talking to other normal people, this is how I usually feel stressed. And I also asked him, how do you react? And he said the same thing, right? Siblings just trigger a different side of you.
Yeah.
And so how about like, and then I would ask him, and then sometimes I even observed him with him talking to his mom, or him talking to like, how is it, what's it like? And you kind of, again, through this whole process, there's going to be definitely stressful moments. And so you will find it, and you will see how they react.
Yeah, my wife asks me all the time whenever I call home. I put the phone down. She's like, "Do you hate them?" I'm like, "No, I don't. It's complicated."
Yes, complicated. Yes, yeah.
So kind of piggybacking off of his question, what is like an acceptable, maybe particularly with like long distance sort of relationships, right? What is like an acceptable, let's say, level of communication, like Islamic acceptable way to like sort of keep talking while not crossing limits, and also like trying, or I guess assessing them, assessing each other and all that, up until like the point of a wedding?
Yeah. I'll answer because, yeah. But he's on power saving mode right now. But so here's my answer, and then you can objectify. I'm always afraid of like, what if it's okay. Anyway, so I think every day, as long as you're maintaining the boundaries of what we talked about last time, which is being respectful and no lusty feelings, and you're talking every day, and you're not like at night just yeah.
I wasn't in the last class.
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
No.
Well, we talked how the haram, like what makes something haram is if you're in khalwa, so if you're like secluded, if you're gazing or you're talking and there's lustful feelings. I think, is there a third thing, or is that were the top two ones?
We talked about physical touch too, but
Physical
he's
touch.
talking about long distance.
Yeah, long distance, yeah, and physical touch. So, if you were to talk to her every day, like let's say during the day, during respectable hours, and there's not like you're staying away from the lustful stuff and the non-respectful stuff, and it's for the sake of getting to know each other, I don't see the problem with that. All right, approved. Okay. Okay. Right. So I think, like, as again, for the sake of getting to know each other, we're getting to know each other.
Okay, so like phone calls, FaceTime.
Yeah, but again, remember, not FaceTime, not like, you know, in bed, you know, doing whatever, but like FaceTime respectfully, right? And during the daylight, preferably, because nighttime, people like, I don't know, there's another side that comes out, and yeah, so that's kind of, you know, what would you, is that a decent answer?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Yes.
I kind of have a question about like how to assess if something is a deal breaker, like at a current time.
Yes.
So let me give you an example. So, I'd always like there's a situation I'm looking at, and it's a completely different dynamic than what I've seen growing up, right? So, I feel like I'm not against having a dynamic like where I'm not like the only one working and they're able to work as well. But then if I bring that up to my mother, she'll be like, you know, like who's gonna raise the kids? The mother gives the compassion to the kid. And to me, I feel like it can be worked at, like it can be worked, like you can manage like a tough schedule. But I don't know if I'm doing that because everything else is green. So I don't know if that's really a deal breaker to me, or if I'm kind of in a way making it.
Yeah.
Like I really know like how to be level-headed in that decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so to clarify, are you saying the deal breaker is she wants to work?
No. I'm saying that like
Give me the deal breaker. What's the
deal breaker? Could be that, but it's not like work. Like I have no problem with work in general, but like it's like an intense job, right? So it's like probably like long shifts daily.
Okay. Okay.
Like and I like of course I'm gonna be working as well, so like it's gonna be tough like to manage. You know, of course I want kids in the future.
Yeah. So let's create a plan, right? Decision. So if this is her lifestyle, and what would it look like if we were to have kids? Are we hiring a nanny? Are you like what's?
Yeah, I'm sure they would. That's the thing. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I feel like it can't be managed. Like that's what I feel like it's not a deal breaker to me.
Okay, so
But,
why are you
the
hesitating?
environment around me is making me think that it is.
Yeah, I
And
see.
I don't know.
And is environment mom or someone else?
It's like kind of like my mom and my siblings. They're all like kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And then I reference my friends, and they're like, "It's not really."
Yeah.
And so I don't know what to like. I don't know like if I'm right or my friends are maybe like still young and they're not like, you know, they don't really know. My family might be right because they've seen it, or like my family's only seen one perspective of life because they've only lived that. Like, there's so many things that are going through my head.
So here's my answer to that. So if mom is saying, right, like this is going to be really hard for you, you're not going to be able to raise kids, and she's going to be busy. And then if you want her, right, if you really want to marry her and you don't think it's the problem, you can say like I hear you, mom. I'm with you. I know it's going to be hard, and I'm willing to manage it. Like I'm willing to figure out what it takes to manage it. And we've already talked about it fully, and this is how we're going to manage it. And I'm willing to go through that struggle with her, and I think it's not a problem. And then if she goes, yeah, but like I don't agree, and then you could be like, it's okay that you don't agree. It's gonna be my problem. I'm not gonna put it on you. I'm not gonna like whatever comes up. And I think your question is like, am I being deluded into like, is this a deal breaker or not? It's a simple decision, right? It sounds manageable. Like there's plenty of examples of women who work and somehow figure it out. So it's more of a decision. Do you want to go through it or not?
I kind of guess there's a little more of a nuance there because I haven't really made the initial approach yet. I know the individual and.
Oh, we're not there yet.
We're not there.
Oh,
yet.
okay.
So like that's what I'm saying. So there's a little bit more nuance. Like.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily need to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
So you're asking, you haven't even approached her yet. We're not there. Like I don't. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, for yourself, is that whatever concern you have that you're willing to, you're deciding to go through or not, and if you know this is her schedule, let's say she's, I don't know, let's say a busy doctor and she's always working, Is that a lifestyle you want to choose before you approach her?
Yeah, that's what
And if you haven't approached her yet, and you're not, you haven't even started, just that's more of a question for you. Like, do you want to even go through that? And sometimes you don't, sometimes you do. But it doesn't matter. But I think, your mom has valid points. Everyone has valid points because from their perspective, and also it comes down to what you're willing to deal with. It's a personal choice because it's going to be your life at the end of the day. Yeah. Okay. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a lot of people might be in that same boat where, given just the nature of like our generation of people, like both husband and wife are working, and it's a huge departure from maybe how our parents operated.
Yeah.
So like any advice about if your parents have a preset ideal of what you like your wife or your husband should look like, and that's different from what your kind of perception is. How do you navigate communicating that to your parents?
Yeah. So always, the first thing is I would clean up any like drama about like why don't they see it my way kind of thing, because that causes a lot of conflict. First, I always like to approach it like, oh, of course they're seeing it that way. They grew up to believe this is the right way. This is the only way things go. So it makes sense why they think you're wrong for believing what you're believing. It makes 100% sense. And we're compassionate, right? We're understanding, makes sense. Now, once we've cleaned that up and we're coming from a clean space, like, hey mom, this is what I want. This is what it looks like. And I've seen the consequences. I know the pros and cons. We've talked it through. I've thought about it. And this is what I want in my life. And then they're gonna be like, yeah, but like this, and this, and like you have to have you have to be ready with your answers, right? Like, yeah, I understand. I'm sure it's gonna cause me a lot of pain in this area, and I'm willing to go through it. And this is what I want. And again, coming from a clean, respectful space, you go back and forth until one of you gets tired, and then make a decision. Right? Yeah. So does that help answer? No?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to shift gears from that question, so if anybody wants to follow up, we could continue with that one. My question is, I was talking to somebody at the end of last semester, and I felt like they were asking a lot of questions to try and figure out like a bit more of my character, which is completely fine, but it felt a little bit, to me at least, it felt a little bit more like it was kind of like rushing a little bit, because like I know I have like a bit more of a shell to crack at first, so I was trying to like tell them like, hold on, give me like a little bit of time to like be a little bit more comfortable to like break out of my shell, and then we could, you'll see a bit more of my personality and my character from there, not to like judge based off of the first like beginning, conversations or whatever. But my question is more like, how do you like, because the process is supposed to be like relatively quick, like a few months is like still pretty quick amount of time to like break out of your shell and try and show, see if there's chemistry, if you could be comfortable with this person or not. So like, how do you kind of navigate that when you have a bit of a shell to come out of it?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a good one. When it comes to breaking the shell, it's not necessarily about time. It's about what do you need to break into your shell. It's like some people can go like a whole year and they're still not broken into kind of the shell. So what is it that you need to know or need to feel in order to feel comfortable? And I would prioritize that, because what relationship starts with is like you small talk to like getting deep. What do you need in order to get deep for you? Like, what makes you comfortable to get deep? And usually what is it that like if you're afraid to open up, what is the fear for you? And then maybe if you can answer that now, what are you afraid of will happen if you were to open up a little too soon?
I think it comes from like a past history of like, middle school, high school, and you get comfortable with somebody, and then like we're like a friend, not necessarily like with interest, but like it's kind of like you see people come and go out of your life, and like I got scared of more people, that happening too. So I got a lot more selective with who I surround myself with.
Right. Yeah. And so I like to say like when you're opening up and you're sharing these details, and let's say they find out these details and they end up leaving, what's wrong with that? what happens? Like for you, I'm just figuring out what the fear is for you. What happens there?
You're saying if
Like you open up, you say what you needed to say, and then they leave.
it's not so much of more of like it's not like I'm scared of what I'm gonna say. It's more like I just don't feel comfortable with that part of the process yet. I
Yes.
suppose.
Yeah, okay. So you don't have like, okay, let me get, are you saying you want to open up more about your past, or what is it that you feel uncomfortable opening up about?
So, for example, this was long distance.
Yeah.
But so I think I would need a bit more of like an in-person interaction that we didn't get to have.
Mm-hmm. So let me answer this.
Yeah.
I think give yourself the time that you need. Like, if 2 weeks is too short or 3 weeks is too short, I think it helps to see what you need in order to open up. And if you were to open up, not opening up with things that are risky, obviously, you're not gonna tell your whole life story, but like, what are things that feel safe that if they know, it's like, okay, whatever. Like, what, and it's hard to talk about it in a way that's not, I need to know what the details are, but like, try to give yourself the space you need. But for for yourself, for your level of awareness, what is it that I need in order to feel comfortable? And if I'm not comfortable, how do I bring this up? Say, hey, I'm not at that level yet. Can we talk about this first, and then we'll get to that level? Like you saying, I'm just trying to show you how like you need to develop the awareness of what do you need in order to feel comfortable first, so that you can communicate that to the person.
Okay.
Because if you don't know, then it's like, what does it take? Like, how do we get there?
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes.
What's your thoughts on it?
I think it was more so just trying to like generally be a bit more comfortable talking to the person. Not like they went like things were going pretty well, I thought, but it was more of like they were asking like it was almost like pretty blunt, like, oh, I just wanted to like see how you are like around your friends. You know, we could like see how it is like if you were to treat me like a friend.
Yeah.
Like, okay, but like that's a little different because like guy friends is different from like a wife, you know. So.
Yeah.
It was kind of hard to like figure out how to like bridge that gap, I suppose, because it was completely fair. She just wants to see like how I am when I'm more comfortable with around my friends and my family. And she was asking about my relationship with my sister and stuff, and I was giving her stories and all that. But it was just like, I don't know, like what I could have done to help show that like more relationship-y side, I suppose. I don't know, because I also like have the same problem where. Or like same characteristic of being a little bit too like blunt or like not blunt, like professional or like the opposite of like relaxed, I guess. Like a bit more uptight. I don't know if that's the right word. Like a bit more formal. So it takes a while to like go into a bit more of a comfortable, relaxed. Like here's some like deep like a real example of like the chemistry we could have.
Right. Yeah. Are you more of an introvert?
Say it again?
Are you more of an introvert? Would you say?
I can honestly be pretty both. I'm not really sure.
Okay. I just say that because there's a good book called Quiet by Susan Cain. It's a really good book to just understand the mind of like what does it take to like get comfortable with that version of you, and then like expand when you can. But like going back, just the main answer I would give you for now is figure out what you need to get you to the stage that you want to go to. So like, okay, if I want to go to this stage, I need to meet her in person first, and then I can talk about these things, or like get to know this.
Okay.
But we can talk afterwards if you want to talk more about that. Okay. Oh yes. Did you have it?
Well, yeah, I could think.
You said it.
Yeah, I guess one of my questions is like, how do you kind of navigate like cultural differences in marriage? Because like that's one of my things. Like if things are going well and like we agree to do it, but like her family wants her to marry somebody from her own culture, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. I would avoid that as much as possible before, like even talking to the girl. Like just ask that first. Like, are your parents open to this? the amount of problems that I see, like they're just like all the way, like they're 2 years in and they're like, oh, my parents don't want this, and it's like, bro, like let's ask this question first. But anyways, avoidances or like preventative measures aside, if you're in this situation and you just gotta, you know, see, okay, can I meet your parents? Can I talk to them? Can I, you know, see like what's preventing them? Like see what it takes to see if it's something that they can be convinced, or if this is something like an absolute no, that there's no way around it. And that's kind of the priority to focus on. Is this something that they can be convinced and they'll get over it? Or is this something that they'll never accept you for? It's hard. It's a hard one.
Yeah.
It's hard. So let's not catch feelings until we until we ask that question.
Yeah. Culture is just, it's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. How to navigate cultural things is more of a, like, you decide between you two what does that look like. But go ahead, Rami.
I just follow up on that. My question is along the lines of, I think when, like, you were talking about, Mom was talking about this earlier, like, your parents have a specific, or a general kind of idea of who this person might be.
Mm-hmm.
You were raised in a specific way, so you're expecting a specific, especially if you were raised in one place and you're in the same country that you're from, like, my question is along the lines of, like, what if you meet somebody that does not necessarily meet those expectations and is untraditional in some specific aspect? Potentially they didn't go to school, but they're doing very well for themselves, or they have potential or something, they have work ethic, you know? There's a lot of things that you see, you know, in that direction. I was having a conversation, I think it was actually at Kareem's Islam, and I had two perspectives, for instance, and one perspective was that they were saying when they were looking for their significant other, at first they were saying, oh, only Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
And then what they realized it was like, okay, there's so many potentials. How do I narrow down? And then they're like, okay, Arabic speaking, that's important to me. But there's so many Arabs, so many differences. And then they got to the point where they're Egyptian, and that's where they're from. And the other person was saying, was that their brother married a Pakistani, and they're Syrian. But they were saying, like, are you willing to let go of somebody who's amazing, but they don't speak Arabic? And so, like, I guess my question is, like, how do you, like, I think it's kind of coming from the series of questions that I've been asking before, but in relation to what he was saying, is that when, like, do you let go of something that you think you really want, but when you're faced with something that is very different from what you're expecting, what your parents are expecting, that could actually be a lot better for you. And then sometimes you get into marriage, and then the things that you thought were very important for you are actually not. You know, you couldn't care less about.
Yeah.
And then that thing would have been a lot more important. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. All right. Let me. Can you phrase your question in one sentence?
Yes, I'll
Yeah.
I was about to say that already, but I guess how do you deal with the characteristics that you either find out that are important to you or that aren't important to you?
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with that change?
Yeah. I'll give an example and you tell me if this is kind of what you're going through, right? In my mind, I had this idea that I have to find someone who's very into psychology and in like coaching and like just like me.
Yeah.
Like I thought that's the only way. There's no way out. Then I met my husband, which is the very opposite. Does not like this stuff, right? So then, like, how do I know if that's important to me in marriage or not? Why do I actually do I need that? Why do I want that? Well, I want that because I thought this is this is how I'm gonna, like, this is how we're gonna connect. How else are we gonna connect? What else am I gonna connect on? Like, I have to actually talk to him. Like, what, like, right? So, other than psychology things, and I was like, so then I realized, I asked myself the question, 20 years from now, when we're in the middle of, you know, we have kids and we're arguing about something, what actually matters in that moment? What actually matters? Does it matter that they're Arabic speaking? Does it matter that they have exactly the same things that I like? No, not necessarily. I think of that moment, like 20 years from now, where we're really in the thick of it, What matters is he empathetic? Is he understanding? Does she listen? Is she willing to work on you with things? And I would like reverse engineer that to what you're trying to look for. So if you meet someone who, what you explained, what you just described, and you think it's important, but like how is that going to matter 20 years from now? And if it you know, that's kind of how to answer that question for myself, at least, is this going to actually matter 20 years from now? And maybe, you know, if you're marrying someone from a different culture, it could, right? Like there could be differences. How is that going to show up for you? Oh, like there could be culture clashes between the family, and is this something I'm willing to deal with? If not, I'll just move on to, okay, this is my, like you can have preferences. Like I prefer not to deal with headaches. I prefer not to have this headache, so, you know, but it's not like I wouldn't weed them out because of that. It's really going back to what am I willing to deal with? What am I willing to commit with, even if it could be a headache?
But I think, I guess my question here is that sometimes like infatuation or like they're maybe really smart or they're really beautiful or they're like just a bunch of different characteristics that you're like, oh, this is like all green, but then you're like, I don't know if I can deal with this, but I'm willing to because I don't know if I can find something like this. But I know I've had those conversations in the previous class. I'm just saying like, then how do you like really actually know that, okay, are you actually willing to do it? Is it just a gut feeling or like, how do you know that, oh, I'm actually willing to like sustain this for the rest of my life?
Yeah, so I would, coming from that, I would imagine yourself where the feelings are not there. What is left? Yeah. If you see all these things, and okay, imagine yourself in a situation where you're in the middle in the kitchen just fighting about money. Like what's left? And you have the ability to put those feelings to the side logically and think about that. And notice, are you like resisting thinking about it, or like you don't want to think about it, or whatever comes up? But yes, to answer your question, it's a good gut feeling. I talked about this last time of like, it's a good, yeah, I can deal with this. Like this is good, I'm in. And yeah, like, you have to ask, you know, that question of like, am I in love because she likes hiking just like me, or is it like, is it more than that? What is actually matters? Yes.
Can a marriage of convenience work? Like a marriage that's not like, oh, like I love this person and oh, I want to get married to this person because like we connect and we, like, you know, there's that like intense emotional, but it's more like, oh, I don't know, like this person has these certain traits that's like good and would sort of be able to like balance me out in a way, and I don't like feel intensely for this person, but it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's like meh. It's like a.
Like I mean, of course, like you don't hate the person, you like the person, but just not like love.
Yeah, I mean it's possible. Yes, people do get married because of those feelings like that. It's more. I'm more aimed for the focus of thriving marriages. But like it works. You can build off of that feeling. That feeling does work. It builds off. And you know, I've met people who, you know, get married in 2 weeks because they're like, this works, and it works, right? It works, and it depends on what you want. Like, do you want you know, really, if you're agreeing and everything, and I think I've seen this a lot, especially in the Desi culture, they get married very fast, like within 2 weeks sometimes, and I'm like, wow, like that's pretty good. And then I check in on her like 6 months later, and she's like, yeah, it's okay, it's working. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's fine. So it works, right? Do you have any thoughts on that? Power saving mode. Turn off.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think it goes back to what you said earlier about you have to define for yourself what you're looking from the marriage, what you're looking for, right, in the marriage.
Yeah.
If you find a like-minded person, right, that you're looking to find someone to spend the rest of your life with, and you're not too particular about
like a nice roommate.
It needs to be this and that.
Nice roommates, you said.
Yeah, nice roommates.
So
and
you
then,
can also raise kids.
and
If that's your standard, sure, okay.
And look, and your wife is the same way. I mean, like, My parents are nice roommates. They're
Yeah.
they're the
Same.
they're the greatest roommates I think ever.
Very good roommates, yeah.
You know, are they in love? Allahu Alam.
No romance, no romance.
Allah
Yeah.
knows best. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you start.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm actively looking for getting to know someone for marriage.
Yes.
I don't know if you have a connection or know someone who also is also looking. Can you find me something? Basically, that's what I'm asking.
You're asking me if I can find you someone?
Yes.
Oh, right now?
I mean,
Okay. So actually, inshallah, I'm gonna do it. I'm planning on doing an initiative at ICGA of actually collecting people's kind of a matchmaking service, but not really. So stay tuned for that.
Okay.
Because I know a little too many people that they always ask me, and I'm like, I'm not a matchmaker. I'm a coach, so I'm gonna find someone who can do the matchmaking while I teach on the side of guiding that. So stay tuned for that as well, inshallah. But and I heard rumor has it there's some sohbah events coming up. Actually I don't know. Like some events coming up. So anyway.
To piggyback off that, whenever you make that, go ahead. I'm going to make like a thing. Go ahead. I'll put my information there. We'll say thing.
You want that too? Yeah.
I ain't got no shame in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like,
No, I'm glad you don't have shame. You don't need shame. Shame out the window, please.
But
Yeah.
you might know also, Sister Rama, how do you I guess another thing is me not being a born Muslim.
Yeah.
How do you, I guess I know every situation was so I know you can't generalize it, but how do you the relationship dynamic between people who are reverse who get with people who are born Muslim?
Born Muslim. Yeah. That's a very general question,
Yeah, I
but
know, general.
yeah. How is it? So again, it goes back to if the woman that you're talking to is fine with where you're at, and it's more about sometimes what happens with reverts is they have not enough knowledge of the basics or how to function prayer or things like that, or even cultural things that they don't know of. So sometimes that can be a clash of she has to educate you on that, but it's not really a problem. I've seen many reverts marry Muslim-born people, and it's not a problem. There can be some struggles, but nothing you can't communicate through. Okay. I think there's a couple questions here. Who should decide the timeline for having children, or how should it be done, especially considering the wife and husband both have different burdens to bear, particularly the wife who bears the biological burnt of it. Who should decide the timeline for having children, or how should it be done? Who should decide? It's both of you. No one of you. So let's say if I say, oh, I'd like in 2 years, and then he said, no, I want in 5 years, and then okay, can we compromise? And if it's a no, we're done. If it's an absolute no, I cannot. I need 5 years, and she wants 2 years, then that's a problem, right? And then also talking about what happens if I can't have kids, what happens this, all these are good things to bring up. Okay. What if I'm interested in getting to know someone, but I'm afraid of doing so in fear of not being their first choice and making them settle for me? Yeah, so this is a question I'm going to guess that is coming from you thinking you're not deserving of being someone's just gonna settle for you. You're just someone's leftover scraps. That's what you probably think of yourself. If I'm gonna guess. Because this question is coming from if you have a fear, it's probably because of you believing it. If you have a fear of someone thinking this about you, it's because you believe it about yourself. And I would say that's true 99% of the time. So you are not, I would suggest, no one's gonna, because your question is what if I'm making them settle for me? They're not, let's just trust that they're making a decision because they want to, not because they're settling. And you can, first work on that for yourself. You are not someone to settle for. All right, next question. It sounds like this process can easily devolve into something very casual. Where's the line between dating and talking for marriage? Especially once you exceed the 90-day container and you're just waiting to get married. Yeah, I knew this was gonna come up. So, as long as there's a plan and people know, you're going somewhere, this is not, because you're saying that what's the difference between casual, dating and getting to know someone for a spouse, is those Islamic hard boundaries. You're not touching, you're not secluded, you're not doing haram things, you're not being lustful. that is a very big difference. That's the line. And so you're casually talking, you're not casually, it's for the sake, it's the intention of marriage. Whoever asked that, if you want to follow up, that's fine. Yes?
I didn't ask that, but I remember made a point about this last class where like he said that like once you know, and you guys are on the same page, like for example, you talked about how in your situation you like had like a very strong break until you actually got married.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just casually talking, you know, and you knew that talking wasn't for the sake of just like getting to know each other. So
Yeah.
is that still in line with everything that was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, we're both on power reserve. Like I'm trying to think as you're talking. Yeah. You know, 27th, like we're all up. You know, so I'm in a situation where I tend to be a lot more conservative than my dad. I know he'll have trouble accepting me, considering a spouse that is as conservative as me. How do I navigate this? Yeah, this.
You're more conservative than your dad.
Yeah.
Mashallah.
Yeah, I've actually seen this.
Yeah?
Yeah. The parents are a lot more liberal.
Chill.
A little too liberal, yeah. And then, but SubhanAllah guided them to be more
Yeah.
Islamic and conservative, and the parents see them as more like extremist for being so Muslim, and so like,
Yeah.
how do I navigate this? Going back to who was I talking to? One of you, where I was talking about how like this is my decision, right? I want to marry this person because these are my reasons. And I get that these are your concerns, that you know she's too conservative or he's too conservative, but this is where I'm at, and you have to learn to agree to disagree, like being okay with him not liking your decision. Sometimes we want them to like our decision. We don't need them to like it. We just need them to like we're just understanding. We both have different opinions. Yeah.
I'm gonna add that a little bit because I didn't ask that question, but
Yeah.
I feel like I'm someone like that before.
Yes.
And what I think really helps me was so in Surah Luqman there's a story about Luqman and his son,
Mm-hmm.
and then like blah 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 blah, and then it said like وَصَحِبُهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Whatever is happening, like just be friend with your parent.
Mm-hmm.
And like mashallah, that helped me like 100%.
Really, yeah.
Like it changed from like me like with my parents like clashing, like become like best friends.
That's beautiful.
So, like
That's amazing.
What verse?
it's a Luqman, like I think it's chapter 30 verse 15, verse 15, 16. That's like the verse number.
Okay.
But yeah, that's like one of my favorite verses in the Quran that helped me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. I have found someone who I really see myself marrying, and I have met their parents, and they are accepting of me and my situation, but they just want to meet my parents. I'm currently about to start medical school, and on top of that, my parents are not Muslim, and they are still grappling with my conversion. I have introduced this girl to my parents, but they want me to wait 4 years till I finish medical school because they are scared of what other people will think, or that I would drop out, which is not something I would do. Neither of us want to be put in a 4-year limbo. My parents think it's normal to just date this girl during these 4 years. So your question is, what do I do? I just need to gaze over this one more time, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna give just an answer of like, what do you think what do you think you need to do during this time? Like, what do you think will help you get through these 4 years? It's really hard giving an answer to this because I need to talk to you and like gauge where you're at, what are you afraid of, all these things. But if you found someone and you really don't want to lose them, I would like, I always say like there's plenty of people out there. You don't have to worry about like losing this one person if you can't talk for 4 years. Okay, I'm gonna leave this question to the side for a second because I can't think straight on this one. So I'm being honest first. So whoever asked this, you can come and talk to me afterwards, please. What are steps I can take what are steps I can take to discuss this with my parents, and what are steps I should take to conduct this in a correct Islamic manner? I'm guessing this is part of the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just can you come talk to me, person? Yes.
I didn't ask that question, but I can kind of take a shot for that person because I'm kind of in a similar situation.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
In which I'm like applying to medical school. I haven't had my but say I did find somebody and I do want to apply. I guess. Sorry, you mind rephrasing that question one more time?
Yeah, I think they're asking like, what do I do?
Like, if the parents not wanting.
Parents don't want to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could a suggestion be that you hold off on marriage, but kind of bring up the idea of engagement during those kind of 4 years?
But their parents are not on board.
For like anything?
They're saying my parents think it's normal to just date this girl during this 4 years. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be straight up. I would just cut it off and be like, when we're ready, we're ready. I don't have time for this. There's plenty of other people. We don't have to be sitting waiting on each other. Like, let's just wait after 4 years. I'm a little too direct. People don't like to hear the answer, but I do go there. I do say like, just cut, like stop. Like let's finish what you need to focus on, and come back to it. If he's available, then great. If she's not, then let's move on. Yeah.
I feel like adding on to that, like on the other hand, it could be like if you see like marriage is sort of like an important step that you believe you're ready to take, then I think it's worth like trying to convince your parents. I was also in a similar situation. I guess mine's not like med school, but just like, well, after college, I'm kind of doing like a master's program, and then like my parents were wanting me to wait. And I found someone, but I sort of kept on like talking to them and trying to get them to sort of see the idea of it that like it's okay to get married even if you're young.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
like,
So I thought, coming from this question, I thought this person already believes that. I thought they already fought for them. This is what I'm understanding. If you, yes, I agree with you 100%. If you've already done the whole talking and they're still not down for it, then I would just like put it on a pause. But I agree with you. Yes, yeah.
I guess in my case, like with some time, like my mom was essentially like able to sort of see that like, okay, like there is reason behind it. Like she sort of saw the Islamic, could I say repercussions of it? If it's like, okay, like, you know, this, when there's no like solid reason to prevent a child from getting married except just something that's like not really tangent, like it's not something that's really tangible, right? Then there is repercussions, like God forbid if the child were to slip up and do something. Like I don't think the sin would be on entirely on the parents, but they would be, I think there would be like, my mother can correct me, but there would be like some part of it of like, okay, the parents sort of allowed room for this to happen.
Yes.
I may be going out on a limb here, but I'm making a lot of assumptions. But sometimes parents tend to live vicariously through their children, especially when it comes to the whole med school thing. It's there was one girl in my high school who she kept being like, yeah, my dad and I, we're applying to Cornell, we're applying to Harvard. What do you mean we? It's not a we thing. You know, so for a lot of these things, I think what would really help is to talk to your parents and find out what kind of stock do they put in you, like getting into med school and finishing it properly. This may come from a fear of like, if you're doing medical school and also married, the marriage will distract you from your studies. And you know, for the past like 20 plus years, we as a collective have been working so hard to get you into medical school for you to throw it away for some girl. So I think you have the right to convince them that, look, I can be married and do this. Other people do it too. In fact, you know, people are doing medical school. The average age in matriculation is increasing year by year. It's not uncommon. In fact, many of my own classmates were married with kids in med school. I mean, it happens. So again, there's no details here. I'm not sure, like, what extent have you talked to your parents about this? Like, how adamant they are about you not doing anything until you finish medical school. But you know, it's not just a cliche; it's a fact, really. Especially if you go to med school here, in some of the Texas, like allopathic medical schools, they say that the hardest part of med school is getting in, because once you're in, you're almost guaranteed. to graduate and then match in some sort of residency training, right? So, in fact, most medical schools are pass-fail.
Oh.
You know, so like it's as long as you're able to communicate to your parents and like is like I'm not throwing away my career by doing this. That may be a fear here from
Okay,
their
makes
perspective.
sense. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Unrelated again, so to follow up.
I love it.
I think one of the kind of questions that all these questions are beating around is like, is there a number for when is a good time to start looking? For example, like for example, this medical school question, if parents don't, believe that you're ready, if you're not ready, then don't start looking 4 years in advance, right? So like, for example, I'm graduating next spring, inshallah. So would starting to look and talk to people now be appropriate, even though I don't currently have a job or whatever, but I'm not like ready now, but I'm planning to be ready, when I graduate and get a job, inshallah. So like, what's like is it okay if I start talking now, or should I wait closer till when I graduate later on, or?
Yeah. That's more of a. I always say it's a personal decision of when. I know you want me to give you a number, but there's no number. Like it's like, am I ready to take on a whole nother human being right now? Do I take on, as in like being in a relationship with a whole other woman? Do I have the capacity for that right now? And if your answer is yes, and you're willing to go through that, then you're ready. If you're not, I would, keep working on yourself until you do feel ready. By the way, actually, let me preface this. There's no like ready and you're gonna feel like, yes, I'm ready. That's not a thing. I just meant more of like asking yourself the logical questions, like if you're financially not there and all of the things you're just not there. I would second guess like why are you, like, do you want to? And if you are you willing to have the conversations of like, I'm not financially ready yet? And it is a personal decision. And, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think a follow up on that, I guess like rather than like necessarily like an age group, potentially like is it like 60-70% ready, or like okay, like you have most things, there's some kinks that you need to get worked out and they're okay with it, or like, because I guess the reason I'm saying the percentage here is that let's say you're going to med school and you find somebody, but you have like 4 years and like a whole life planned ahead, right? And so there's a potential where you have to talk for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, I don't know, at least the way I understood his question is that, is there like a time where like it would limit the amount of waiting and like kind of like the risk of waiting and just kind of dating for 4 years and whatnot? Like in terms of like, if I'm like 60% ready, this is more likely when I should like start looking for somebody, as opposed to something like when I'm like 10% ready.
Yeah, let's define ready though. Like, we're just saying ready. What does that mean? Ready.
Ready could be financially, intellectually, maturity-wise.
Right.
Like,
So if you're in med school starting off, is that ready?
it depends. Are your parents like supporting you?
Are you ready?
I mean,
Yeah. No, I meant like someone starting off med school. Like, is that person ready?
Depends on the person.
Yeah. What does it depend on? Exactly. What does it depend on?
I guess depending on what the person think about what does it mean to be ready.
Right. So we have to define what does it mean. Okay. So ready means okay. Can I, if I want to be someone who financially supports my wife, am I ready?
Yeah.
Like that's what I mean by ready. So we have to define what does that mean. Because y'all want me to give you a general like yes this is ready, but like financially okay I'm ready. Okay, but I'm in the first year of med school, but I'm broke. So what do I do there? You're not ready, right? I was talking to who was it? So yesterday, she was talking to she's in med school. They were talking for 3 years, and it didn't work because they're not ready. Who knew that we could have known that from the first year? They're not ready, right? 3 years, and the reason it doesn't work is when you elongate things like that and you don't get married, like things fizzle out with time. And it's just not okay.
So that really is dating.
That was dating.
That's dating.
That
That's
was
an
dating.
example of dating.
Yeah.
I guess what I was trying to say, and I think that's a perfect example, is that like that's my fear, is that okay, but let's say we've defined what ready means.
Mhm.
I'm 60% there.
Yeah.
Right? And I
Can
find
you give me
somebody-
what 60% means to you?
For me specifically?
Yeah, give me.
I think the most important part would be like that I could afford that, like that I could like support them.
Okay, like 60%.
not-
Like you can buy her like a bag from Walmart versus like from Chanel. Like what do you mean? Yeah.
I mean, and for me at this point,
Yeah.
it would mean that this person most likely would have to have a job.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Like, to realistically speak,
Yes,
I would
yeah.
like to support it fully. Right. I think I could support it like emotionally. I can support it like religiously, somewhat.
Yeah.
In the sense like I'm working on that. You know?
Right.
I could support it as a friend, as a husband, in that sense, like physically. Well, what else? I think I have a place.
Yeah,
I have,
sounds
I
like a good plan.
I'm
Yeah.
going, you know what I mean? Like in terms of my doctoral work, like there's things going on, you know. And
Right.
so I like not everything is perfect. you know
Right,
what I'm
which is
saying?
not supposed
But,
to be.
like,
Yeah.
What's
Right.
funny is he put that at 60%.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds like 100.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe you're saying maybe financially you're not, you want to be maybe you're not 60%, but you want to be higher.
Ideal.
But like
Right.
this is a good start. Like as you know, you communicate. This is where I'm at,
Right.
and that sounds ready.
Okay.
Okay.
I think
What's your hesitation? What's your yeah?
No, it's not a hesitation. I think it's more like a preventative measure from like not wasting people's time, but like prolonging this. Like even you meet somebody and like waiting for a couple of years as you're getting ready,
Yeah.
and then you realize, oh, we're not ready. 2
Yeah.
years down.
So when I define ready, I mean like ready to get married. Like
Okay.
maybe that's more like okay.
You mean like pull the trigger, like
Yeah, like let's do it.
Yeah.
Like not like in 3 years. Like ready. That's what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Just a quick check on time. We have the Quran competition starting in 15 minutes. Perhaps if we could spend like the next 6 minutes, that'd be good.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
isn't the Quran competition 5:30?
That's it.
It's 4:30. They changed the time.
4:30.
Unfortunately.
Okay, I think there was one last question and then okay, I don't have
This is question number 100.
huh?
Oh.
Oh,
Believe it-
wow.
You answered 100 questions.
Wow, 100 questions.
That's a nice round number.
It
too.
is a nice round, and please don't ask anymore yet. I'm just kidding. So I don't end up having conversations with women at the masjid outside of occasional small interactions. Am I supposed to approach someone on looks alone initially? You could. I don't see a problem with that, but I mean, you could if you don't have data and you're just trying to talk to someone. And you start off with that conversation of like, hey, how are you? And like, you know, you talk to them and you find out they're in first year med school, run away.
We're not ready.
We're not ready. Right. So yes.
I think
could say,
there's
yeah.
implicit a lot of data points already, right? Like the fact that those small interactions are happening at the masjid that tells you a lot.
Yeah.
There's shared values there because you're at the masjid, she's at the masjid.
Right. Yeah.
Those small interactions you're talking about you're calling them small, but are they being respectful of those small interactions? Like, are they being cordial? Are they being? That's another data point, right?
Yeah.
So
Those are data points. Yeah.
it's not just attraction.
The masjid alone is a data point.
Yeah. It's a foundation of a great is.
Yeah.
I mean, every married couple started off as like meeting for the first time,
Yeah.
right? You know, this is-
Yeah, my husband wasn't like, oh, I know everything about her. He
Yeah.
approached me because he said my style was nice. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, yeah, it's gonna be alone or for looks alone. Yeah. Anyways, so 100 questions. Any other questions? So we're all ready. We're like ready to navigate this adventure. 40%. Yeah. Okay, alhamdulillah. So inshallah, I'm really honored actually to go through this with you all and I really just want all of you to feel empowered to feel as we're going about this and not feel and inshallah maybe we'll continue this next year, but hopefully keep refreshing yourselves on knowledge of all this stuff and keep growing, and may Allah bless all of you inshallah.
I mean, just to kind of some housekeeping announcements.
I'll do it since you're
Yeah, please. Okay.
Yeah. You see, you can't breathe. Okay. All right, announcements. Office hours on Nueces Mosque, Imam Anwar. Hold on. Is this for me?
It's just like general.
These
Okay.
are these are the
Your call if you want to.
You can read it first.
Okay. Sister Lema, office hours shout out. Any resources you may have. Oh, you're talking to me. Okay. So this is so funny. All right. I usually if someone wants to talk to me, I usually they have to talk to Imam Anwar first, and if you're referred to by him, I will talk to you because he's my kind of gateway. Right? Okay. You can all find all classes. Can you just announce it? I don't know what I'm saying. Sorry.
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 Bismillah. All right, so first things first, we have office hours here by Imam Anwar at Nueces Mosque, and you can find these links online as well. So if you go to nuecesmosque.com, they're gonna start again after Ramadan, right? When will the bookings be live again? Do you have any idea?
yeah, right after Eid.
Right after Eid, sounds good. But they're capable to talk about these topics and more. Sister Lama, shout out Sister Lama, thank you for your time once again.
Yes.
You can find more information on our website as well, but
Yes.
like she said already, you can go
Yeah.
to Imam Anwar. We've been recording all these classes on YouTube and Instagram. We've been posting them on like a web page we made. So you can find that in the link in the bio in our Nueces Instagram page. And then we post it randomly like on a story as well. But like it has all the recordings and with some basic notes on that. And Software Institute is an institute that kind of specializes specifically in this. We had our leadership reach out to them, and we can't get something going on right now, but we will be doing something with them inshallah next semester. So if you guys are here next semester in Austin, you'll be getting like a workshop from Imam Mahad himself, who's pretty well known in this type of stuff. And last but not least, inshallah, we like Nueces Mosque plans to have these classes every 2 years. So if you're a freshman right now, you might see them in junior year and so on and so forth. But you can always refer back to the classes because they are recorded. But yeah, I just want to say Jazakallah khair for taking that time to learning more about this topic, and do keep the teachers in your du'as as well.
Yes. Yeah, and I also promised whoever actually committed to do this work and followed through and consistent, you can come work with me, and I want to work with you. I'll give you like 3 sessions on me. So if you are someone who's consistent, and I know your faces, that you're very familiar, so you can reach out to me on Instagram, and we'll give you those 3 sessions. It's pretty life changing. So yeah. Okay. All right. Jazakallah khair, everyone.